I never imagined that saying I do on my wedding day with Jake Carter would be equivalent to signing an invisible contract with his mother, Linda Hayes. But that is exactly what happened. From the very moment our lips met beneath the blazing California sun on the beach, Linda had decided that she wasn't merely going to be my mother-in-law. She was going to monitor every second of my life. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 30, a young mother with perpetually hurriedly tied brown hair and eyes that bear the weariness of countless sleepless nights, soothing my child. Jake and I lived in a small house in the Sacramento suburbs, a haven surrounded by sprawling oak trees and friendly neighbors who greeted us with a smile. That house was our paradise until Linda arrived with her false smile and words as sharp as knives. It all began with small things. An unexpected knock at the door early in the morning, a basket of homemade cookies placed on the kitchen table when I wasn't expecting them. "I'm just stopping by," Linda would say, her piercing eyes sweeping over our home as though she were inspecting it. Before long, these visits became a daily ritual. Every morning, exactly at 7:30, I would see Linda standing at the door with a key, half visible in her hand. And that smile would send chills down my spine. "Emma, I'm here to check on my grandson," she would announce as if I were simply an employee in need of supervision. Ethan, our 2-year-old son, would look up from his high chair with wide, innocent eyes, unaware that his grandmother was turning his mother's life into a living hell. I tried to remain calm, pushing aside my disheveled hair and my stained t-shirt, answering, "Linda, I'm fine. Ethan is fine. You don't have to come by every day." But Linda only smiled and strode into our kitchen, opening the refrigerator as if it were her own home. "You're so busy. Let me help," she said, every word feeling like an invisible slap. "This house is a mess, Emma. Ethan needs cleaner toys. What are you feeding him that leaves his face all sticky?" I bit my lip and clenched my fists, determined not to scream out that she was invading my space, our family's space. I endured it. I told myself that Linda was family. She only loved Ethan, after all. Yet love does not grant someone the right to barge into my home every single day without knocking. Nor does it justify standing there, judging every decision I make as if I were a failing mother. One morning when Ethan was napping and I finally had a few moments of quiet, I attempted to talk to her. "Linda," I began, my voice trembling but resolute, "I do appreciate you, but I need my own space. Please call before coming over, okay?" She raised an eyebrow as though I had insulted the entire Hayes clan. "Emma, I'm just trying to help." "Family doesn't need an invitation," she replied dismissively, turning and leaving me with a feeling of utter helplessness. I knew that conversation would lead nowhere, yet I naively hoped she'd understand. I turned to Jake, hoping he would stand on my side. With his dark hair and gentle eyes, Jake had always been my rock. But when I explained Linda's behavior, he merely sighed and ruffled my hair. "Honey, your mother's only looking out for Ethan. She's lonely, please try to understand. She means no harm." "No harm?" I nearly screamed, though I lowered my voice for Ethan's sake. "Jake, your mother barges into our house like she's at a supermarket, records Ethan without asking, and says things that make me feel worthless. Don't you see the problem?" Jake looked at me with tired eyes. "I'll talk to her, but don't make such a fuss. You know she loves Ethan." He got up and ended the conversation, leaving me alone with my overwhelming disappointment. I realized then that if I wanted to protect my family, I couldn't simply depend on Jake. I had to take matters into my own hands. The next day, everything crossed the line. I was pushing the stroller through the supermarket when a text from our neighbor, Rachel, came through. "Emma, I just saw your mother-in-law taking Ethan to the park. I thought you knew, so I had to text you." My heart seemed to skip a beat. I abandoned the stroller and raced home, my mind reeling. What had Linda done now? How dare she take my son without asking? When I opened the door, I found Ethan playing on the sofa, while Linda sat there as casually as if nothing were amiss. "What did you do?" I screamed, rushing over to scoop Ethan into my arms and check him from head to toe. Ethan giggled innocently, but I trembled with anger. "Emma, calm down," Linda said, her tone sweet yet chillingly cold. "I just took him for a walk. He loves it, doesn't he, sweetheart?" She leaned down to stroke Ethan's hair, but her eyes locked on mine as if daring me to challenge her. "You have no right," I shouted, tears threatening to spill. "You're not allowed to take my son anywhere. Get out of my house right now." Linda slowly stood and reached for her purse. "You'll see, Emma, you can't stop me," she said in a low, cutting tone. "Ethan is my grandson. I have every right." With that, she stepped out, leaving me clutching Ethan as my heart pounded in terror. I knew this wasn't the end. Linda was not one to simply give up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Jake, staring at the ceiling, feeling as though our home had been invaded. Jake apologized when he heard my story, but all he managed was, "I'll warn her next time." I knew he was unwilling to confront his own mother, and that left me determined even more. The next morning, I called a locksmith. I watched as each lock was changed, feeling that I was reclaiming a small piece of control. I even installed the Ring security camera system, the same kind everyone in Sacramento swore by. After the technician left, I checked the app on my phone. The front door, back door, and yard were all visible. "Now, let's see what you're up to, Linda," I whispered with a small, defiant smile. I had no idea that changing the locks was only the first step. Linda wasn't content with simply surprising me with her visits. She was about to turn my life into a public battleground, a stage for the whole world to watch and judge. And I, Emma Carter, would have to fight to protect my family, no matter the cost. After updating the locks and installing the security cameras, I felt, if only for a moment, that I had regained some peace in our small Sacramento home, but I was sorely mistaken. Linda Hayes was not someone who would accept defeat. She didn't simply want to control me and Ethan. She wanted the entire world to know that I was a bad mother and a wicked daughter-in-law. And she was going to do it in ways I never could have imagined. The very next morning, I awoke with a rare sense of relief. There was no sound of keys turning in the locks, no sight of Linda at the door with that phony smile. I made myself a cup of coffee, launched the Ring app, and meticulously scanned every corner of the house. Everything was quiet. Ethan sat at the table, giggling as I made silly faces. "I win, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing his forehead. But that joy was fleeting. By noon, my phone began to ring incessantly. A text from Rachel, my most trusted neighbor, read, "Emma, have you seen that video? Your mother-in-law posted something bizarre." My heart sank. A video? Linda? I opened Facebook and immediately saw a post from a Sacramento community group with the title, "Mother-in-law Banned from Seeing Her Grandson. The Hidden Truth." The video showed Linda standing in front of my house, holding a picture of Ethan, her eyes brimming with tears. "All I ever wanted was to love my grandson," Linda said in the video. Her voice choked as though she were performing in a low-budget soap opera. "My daughter-in-law, Emma Carter, won't let me get close. She changed the locks and kicked me out of the home as if I were a stranger. I worry about my grandson. Does he even receive proper care?" She turned toward the camera to wipe away her tears. "As a grandmother, I only want Ethan to be safe. What's wrong with loving your family?" The video had already garnered over 2,000 views and hundreds of comments. As I scrolled through the reactions, it felt as if I had been stabbed. "Poor dear grandma," one comment read. "This daughter-in-law definitely has issues," another said. Some even tagged me, calling me evil and selfish. I shuddered. Not from anger, but from shame. Linda had painted me as the villain in the eyes of an entire city. I called Jake, my voice trembling with despair. "Have you seen the video your mother posted?" "Linda is lying, Jake. She's turning me into a monster." Jake fell silent for a long moment and then sighed. "Emma, I didn't know she'd go that far. I'll call her right away, but don't worry, I'll handle it." Yet I could sense his hesitation. Jake did not really want to confront his own mother, and that isolation made me feel even lonelier. I chose not to respond publicly to the video. I knew that if I did, everything might spiral even further. Linda wanted me to react. She wanted to trap me emotionally. Instead, I saved the video, took screenshots of every hateful comment, and noted down the times. If Linda intended to continue her public campaign, I would be prepared with every piece of evidence. I never anticipated she would go even further, so quickly. 2 days later, as I took Ethan to daycare as usual, Tammy, his ever-smiling teacher, pulled me aside in a hushed tone. "Emma, something strange happened yesterday. Linda, your mother-in-law, right, came here claiming that she was Ethan's guardian and should pick him up. However, her name wasn't on the list, so we had to refuse her. But she insisted and even recorded a video at the gate, saying we were blocking her right as his grandmother. My blood raced. What did she do?" I murmured, holding Ethan tightly. Tammy showed me a paper, a forged form with my signature adding Linda to the pickup list. The signature wasn't quite mine, but it was convincing enough to leave the daycare staff confused. We tried calling you immediately, but couldn't reach you, Tammy explained. We kept Ethan safe, but you need to check this out. I left the daycare clutching Ethan so tightly that he squirmed in my arms. Linda was not only barging into my home and faking video evidence to defame me, she was now trying to abduct my own son right under my nose. I drove straight to the police station and filed a complaint about the forged signature. The officer, a middle-aged man, nodded while taking notes and warned, "Proving forgery is difficult unless she confesses. For now, we'll contact Mrs. Hayes and warn her to stay away." Returning home, I felt trapped in an endless nightmare. That night, I put Ethan to bed early and sat alone on the sofa, opening the Ring app to review every video clip from the morning. I was terrified that Linda would appear at any moment. And then I saw it, a clip recorded at 1:01 a.m., showing Linda, clad in a black coat, standing in our backyard and peering through Ethan's room window. She did nothing more than stand silently for 5 long minutes. Then she turned away and melted into the darkness. I screamed, dropping my phone as my heart pounded wildly. Linda wasn't just trying to control our lives, she was obsessed. I immediately called Jake and sent him the video. "Watch this," I shouted over the phone. "Your mother was right outside our son's room at midnight. And you still say she's harmless?" Jake watched in silence for several minutes before speaking in a trembling voice. "Emma, I had no idea she'd gone this far. I'm sorry, I'll talk to her, this time very seriously." But I knew his promise wouldn't be enough. Linda had crossed the line, and I had to act before she did something even worse. The following morning, I met with a lawyer, a stern woman named Karen, who listened carefully as I recounted everything, watching the video and nodding steadily. "Your mother-in-law's behavior shows clear signs of harassment," she said. "We can request a temporary restraining order. But if Linda fights back, we'll need more evidence." I agreed and began compiling everything. Rachel's texts, Linda's videos, even the forged daycare forms. I thought I was prepared. But I soon learned that Linda was planning something far more ruthless. She wasn't only determined to win within our family. She wanted the whole world on her side, even if it meant destroying me in the process. I, Emma Carter, had once believed that changing the locks and installing a ring system would restore peace to our modest Sacramento home. Yet after Linda Hayes posted defamatory videos on Facebook, forged my signature to pick up Ethan from daycare, and was caught on camera lurking outside my son's room at midnight, I realized I wasn't just confronting a difficult mother-in-law. I was facing a storm, a force determined to destroy everything I hold dear. After discovering the midnight video, I barely slept. Every small sound, a creak of the floor, the wind at the door, made me jump and check the Ring app. Night after night, I clutched Ethan even tighter, terrified that Linda might escalate her madness. Eventually, even Jake admitted that his mother had a problem. Yet his repeated promise, "I'll handle it," did nothing to make me feel safe. I had a sinking feeling that Linda was preparing a final, devastating blow. I was right. Just a few days later, while I was serving Ethan breakfast, my phone rang again. This time it was a text from Rachel, the one neighbor I still trusted. "Emma, turn on Channel 7 right now. Your mother-in-law's on TV." I hurried to the television and my heart nearly sank. There, on a talk show called Good Morning Valley, a program that had once invited Linda, the camera showed her sitting gracefully in a pastel blue dress and pearl necklace. The host, a blonde woman with a practiced smile, introduced her as a pitiful grandmother forbidden from seeing her grandson. "I just wanted to be close to Ethan," Linda said in a choked voice, holding up an old family photograph taken on Ethan's first birthday, of me, Jake, Ethan, and herself. "My daughter-in-law, Emma Carter, changed the locks and wouldn't let me near him. I worry for my grandson. She's tense and out of control. How can anyone be sure Ethan is safe?" Linda dabbed away tears as the studio audience murmured sympathetically and clapped. I stood there, frozen, dropping my spoon of oatmeal. Linda had not only defamed me online, she had broadcast our family's pain on TV, turning me into a villain in the eyes of all of California. The host continued, "What do you think is wrong with your daughter-in-law?" And Linda sighed, performing as if she were a seasoned actress. "I don't wish to speak ill of Emma, but she's jealous and controlling. I fear she's isolating my son and grandson." Unable to bear it any longer, I turned off the TV. Ethan looked at me innocently, asking, Mom, what's wrong? I forced a weak smile and kissed his forehead. Nothing, sweetie. Mom's just tired. But inside, I felt as if I were burning from within. Linda wasn't just trying to control, she was trying to destroy me. By the afternoon, Linda's public assault escalated. The talk show video was uploaded to YouTube and quickly circulated among Sacramento parent groups. My phone exploded with texts from unknown numbers, calling me names like ungrateful daughter-in-law. She only loves her grandson. How can you be so cruel? One text warned chillingly, "Be careful, Emma. Someone is watching you." I reported the threats to the police, but they replied, "Without concrete evidence, there's little we can do." I knew Linda was behind it, even if her fingerprints were invisible. That evening, Jake came home looking ashen. He had seen the talk show during his lunch break. "Emma, I had no idea your mother would go so far," he said while embracing me. I called her and told her to stop, but she wouldn't listen. She said she was protecting Ethan. I looked into his tearful eyes. He was torn between his loyalty to his mother and his love for us. For the first time, I wasn't willing to comfort him. Jake, if you don't do something soon, I'll have to take matters into my own hands," I said in a cold tone. He nodded, although I could still see hope in his eyes, that things might resolve on their own. The following morning, an unmarked package arrived at our door. Inside was a doll, disturbingly resembling Ethan in its brown hair and blue outfit. The very outfit our son had been wearing the day before. Its head was torn, and attached was a note reading, "You're not fit to be a mother." I screamed, and Ethan cried in shock. I called the police, but there was no sign of surveillance or witnesses. I knew it was Linda, but she was too cunning to leave any evidence behind. I went back to see Karen, our lawyer, this time carrying the doll and note. Her expression darkened. "This is a threat, but we need to tie it to Linda. Continue saving every video, every threatening message, and every odd detail," she instructed firmly. I nodded resolutely. I even upgraded our outdoor cameras and alarm system. Yet Linda's covert tactics only continued to escalate. That same weekend, I took Ethan to the park, trying desperately to give him a moment of joy amid the ever-present tension. As I pushed his swing, a strange woman approached, phone in hand and already recording. "You are Emma Carter, aren't you?" she demanded in a snide voice. "Do you think you have the right to keep your own grandmother away from your son?" Before I could answer, she began live streaming on Instagram, shouting, "Everyone, here's the evil daughter-in-law in Linda Hayes' video." A small crowd gathered, whispering and pointing. I grabbed Ethan and ran to my car, my heart pounding furiously. That live stream later racked up thousands of views, and I received dozens more threatening messages like, "Give Ethan back to his grandmother." "You will lose your son, you monster." I ended up locking down my social media accounts, feeling as if the whole world was against me. That night, I sat with Jake recounting everything. For the first time, he clasped my hand without defending his mother. "Emma, I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have stopped her earlier." I only nodded silently. I just wanted to go home, to hold Ethan, and put this nightmare behind us. I then opened my laptop and began to organize all the evidence. Videos of Linda outside our window, the forged daycare form, threatening messages, even the TikTok from the supermarket. I sent everything to Karen with a note. "I want this to end." She replied immediately, "Emma, we have enough to obtain a restraining order, but be warned. Linda might counter by suing for visitation rights with Ethan. Prepare yourself." I nodded over the phone, my heart heavy. The restraining order was only the first step, and I knew Linda wouldn't stop easily. Then, one morning, as I went to collect the mail, I checked the security camera to be sure no one was lurking outside. In the mailbox lay a plain white envelope with no return address. I opened it slowly, my hand trembling, ready to call the police if necessary. Inside was a piece of paper scrawled in chaotic handwriting. "Emma, you think you can steal Ethan from me? You have no idea what I've lost. Ethan is my second chance, and I won't let you ruin it." At the bottom, a chilling line read, "Leave, Jake, or you will lose everything." I stood there in the yard, feeling as though the very air had been drained from it. Linda wasn't only after Ethan, she was calling him her second chance. A second chance for what? I snapped a photo of the note and immediately forwarded it to Karen, then called Jake home. When he read the note, his face blanched. "Emma, what is she saying?" he whispered, voice shaking. "Second chance? What does she mean?" I looked at Jake, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes, a fear of his own mother. Jake, you have to confront her, I said firmly, not by calling or apologizing. You must go and ask her directly what she wants. Otherwise, I'll handle it myself. Jake nodded with tear-filled eyes. Emma, I'll do it. I owe you and Ethan that much. That afternoon, Jake drove to Linda's house, a 20-minute trip from our home in the suburbs. I stayed behind, clutching Ethan, terrified of what might happen. When Jake returned, he looked as though a part of his soul had been torn away. Mom, she's not normal, Emma, he said, collapsing onto the sofa. I asked her about that note, about Ethan. She started crying and said she only wants to correct past mistakes. She admitted she failed with you, failed with me, and that Ethan is her way to make it right. I yelled at her to stop hurting us, but she just looked at me and said, Jake, you don't understand. Emma isn't worthy of Ethan. Then, she told me never to contact her again. I held Jake as he trembled, realizing for the first time that he was breaking away from his mother. But I also knew that Linda would not stop simply because of Jake. Her note was a warning, and I had to prepare for the worst. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat before my laptop, rechecking the ring footage as an almost obsessive ritual. And then I saw it, a video clip recorded at 2:47 a.m. from the night before the note appeared. Linda, wearing a black coat, was seen standing at the far end of the backyard near the trash bins. She opened one of the bins, threw something inside, and hurriedly left. My heart pounded as I ran outside in my pajamas, despite the biting cold, and opened the trash bin. Buried beneath the layers of garbage bags was a small box containing an old family photograph of Jake, Ethan, and me. But shockingly, my face had been crudely torn out, accompanied by another note. You do not belong to this family. I brought the box inside, took pictures of every item, and sent them all to Karen. This wasn't just evidence. It was the final blow I needed. Linda wasn't simply threatening me. She was revealing the full extent of her obsession, and the security camera had caught every second. I called Karen first thing the next morning. Emma, this is gold, she said. This video, along with the note and all the evidence, will convince the judge that Linda poses a threat. I'm filing for a restraining order today. I felt a flash of hope, but also fear. Linda was still out there, and her note still haunted me. What did second chance mean? Why did she believe I was unworthy? I began searching through Linda's old Facebook posts, desperate to find a clue, and then I found an old comment from one of her friends written a year ago. Linda, I know you're still hurting over Sarah, but Ethan will help you get through. Sarah, I'd never heard that name before. I messaged Rachel, asking if she knew anything. Rachel immediately replied, Emma, Sarah is Jake's younger sister. She died when she was little. She was in a car accident. Linda never talks about it, but people say she blames herself all her life. My heart nearly stopped. Sarah. A second chance, indeed. Linda didn't merely see Ethan as her grandson. She saw him as a way to redeem herself for losing her daughter. And in her eyes, I was simply an obstacle. I told Jake, and he broke down. Emma, I had no idea Mom felt that way. She's been hiding Sarah from me all these years. You must stop her before she harms you further. Yet, Linda had other plans. A week later, when I thought I was ready for court, a phone call from Tammy, Ethan's teacher at daycare, sent a shiver down my spine. Emma, Linda just called. She claims she has a legal permit to pick up Ethan. We don't believe it, but she's on her way here, right now. I felt myself being sucked into a void. A legal permit? Linda? I tossed my phone aside, gathered Ethan, who was playing on the carpet, and cried out, Honey, we must leave right away. I tried calling Jake, but he was in a meeting. I texted Rachel, pleading, Linda is coming to daycare. I need you now. Then I rushed to the car, Ethan in my arms, my heart pounding as if it would burst. The daycare was only 10 minutes away, but that drive felt like an eternity. I imagined Linda standing at the gate with her fake smile, determined to snatch Ethan away from me. When I arrived, Linda's silver SUV was parked at the entrance. There she was, wearing a dark green jacket, clutching a sheaf of papers, speaking with Tammy. A suited, unfamiliar man, likely her lawyer, stood by her side, and a small group of parents had gathered, whispering and filming on their phones. Emma! Tammy called in a worried tone as she saw me approaching. Clutching Ethan tightly, I stepped forward, voice quivering with determination. "Linda, what are you doing? You have no right to be here." Linda turned, her smile cold as a razor. "Emma, I have a permit," she declared, holding up the papers. "The court granted me visitation rights with Ethan. You can't keep me away forever." The man beside her nodded and handed me a document. I glanced at it, an order resembling a court directive, though the judge's signature was faint and unclear. "This is a fake," I screamed, hurling the paper to the ground. "You forged my signature at daycare, and now you're pulling this stunt?" Tammy stepped between us, speaking firmly. "Mrs. Hayes, we've checked. No court order has been sent. Please leave immediately, or I'll call the police." Linda's face fell for a moment before she quickly recovered and addressed the gathered crowd. "See, everyone? My daughter-in-law is losing it. She won't let me see my grandson, even though I have every legal right." A few onlookers nodded and recorded her every word, but I refused to let her manipulate the situation any longer. "Linda, you're lying," I shouted, causing Ethan to burst into tears. "You were seen outside my son's room at midnight, sending threatening dolls and falsely reporting me to CPS. You don't love Ethan. You just want to control him." For a brief moment, the crowd fell silent. Some people even lowered their phones. Linda opened her mouth as if to retort, but the man beside her hushed her with a whisper. She turned her glare toward me, filled with hatred, then boarded her car and drove off. Tammy wrapped me in a comforting embrace. "Are you okay? We won't let her near Ethan again." I returned home, holding Ethan in my arms, tears streaming down my face. Shortly thereafter, Rachel arrived, carrying cookies and a tight hug. "Emma, Linda's lost it," she said, laughing through her tears. "But you did the right thing, standing up to her in front of everyone. She's completely out of control." I nodded, though deep down I was terrified. That forged permit was a bold move, and I knew Linda wasn't finished yet. That very evening, Jake came home visibly enraged. "Emma, I can't believe your mother did this," he exclaimed, pounding his fist on the table. "I called her, but she wouldn't answer. I'm heading to her house right now." I clutched his hand and whispered, "Jake, be careful. Your mom is not normal." He nodded, kissed me quickly, then left. While waiting for Jake to return, I sat at my laptop and reviewed the ring footage from that morning when Linda had come to daycare. And then I saw it, a clip recorded at 3:00 a.m. the previous night, just before that phone call from Tammy. Linda, in the same coat as that morning, was seen standing at the front corner of our yard, placing an envelope into our mailbox. I hadn't checked the mailbox that morning. Rushing outside, I opened the envelope and discovered another note. "Emma, you cannot win. Ethan belongs to me. Leave Jake, or I will make sure you lose everything. Forever." I snapped photos of the note and immediately sent them to Karen, then called Jake. When he saw the note, his face went pale. "Emma, what is this? What has happened to your mother?" he whispered, hands shaking. "Second chance? What does she mean by that?" I looked at Jake and, for the first time, saw him truly afraid of his own mother. "Jake, you have to confront her," I urged in a steady voice. "Don't just call or apologize. Go and ask her directly what she wants. If you don't, I'll have to handle this myself." With red, tear-filled eyes, he nodded. "Emma, I'll do it. I owe you and Ethan that much." That afternoon, Jake drove to Linda's house, 20 minutes away in the suburbs. I stayed behind, cradling Ethan and trying not to think about what could happen. When Jake returned, he looked as if he'd lost a piece of his soul. "Mom, she's not normal, Emma," he said, sinking into the sofa. "I asked her about the note, about Ethan. She started crying and said she only wanted to correct past mistakes. She admitted she'd failed with you, failed with me, and that Ethan is her chance to fix things. I yelled at her to stop hurting you, but she just looked at me and said, 'Jake, you don't understand. Emma isn't worthy of Ethan.' Then she told me never to contact her again." I held Jake, feeling his body shake with pain. For the first time, I saw him break the bond with his mother, although I knew Linda wouldn't stop just because of him. Her note was a dire warning, and I had to prepare for the worst. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat before my laptop, checking the ring footage again like a maniac. And then I saw it. A new video clip from 2:47 a.m., recorded the night before the note appeared. In it, Linda, wearing a black coat, stood in the far corner of our backyard near the trash bins. She opened one of the bins, threw something inside, and hurried off. My heart pounded furiously. I dashed outside in my pajamas despite the cold, pried open the trash bin, and discovered a small box underneath layers of bags. Inside the box was an old family photograph of Jake, Ethan, and me. But inexplicably, my face had been crudely torn out, accompanied by yet another note reading, "You don't belong in this family." I brought the box back inside, photographed every item, and sent everything off to Karen. This wasn't just evidence, it was the final blow I needed. Linda wasn't merely threatening me, she was revealing the depths of her obsession, and the security camera had captured it all. I called Karen first thing the next morning. "Emma, this is perfect," she said. "This video, along with the note and every other piece of evidence, will convince the judge that Linda is a threat. I'm filing for a permanent restraining order today." A small relief washed over me, but only a little. Linda was still out there, and her letter still haunted my thoughts. What exactly did she mean by second chance? Why did she believe I was unworthy? I began scouring Linda's old Facebook posts, hoping for a clue. And then I saw it, a comment posted a year ago by one of Linda's friends. "Linda, I know you're still hurting over Sarah, but Ethan will help you get through." Sarah? I'd never heard that name before. I messaged Rachel asking if she knew anything, and she promptly replied, "Emma, Sarah is Jake's younger sister. She died as a child in a car accident. Linda never speaks of it, but everyone says she blames herself all her life." My heart nearly stopped. Sarah. So Linda didn't merely see Ethan as a grandson. To her, he was a means to atone for her loss, a second chance to redeem herself for losing her daughter. And to Linda, I was nothing but an obstacle. I told Jake everything, and he broke down. "Emma, I had no idea that's what she thought. She's been hiding Sarah from me all her life. I must put a stop to this before she hurts you any further." But Linda had another plan. A week later, just as I thought I was ready for the trial, I received a phone call from Tammy, the daycare teacher, that sent shivers down my spine. "Emma, Linda just called and said she has a legal permit to pick up Ethan. We can't believe it, but she's on her way here, right now." I felt as though I were being dragged into an abyss. A legal permit? Linda? I tossed my phone aside, clutched Ethan, who was playing on the mat, and cried out, "Sweetheart, we have to leave immediately." I called Jake, but he was in a meeting, and I texted Rachel, "Linda is coming to daycare. I need you now." Then I rushed to the car with Ethan in my arms, my heart pounding so hard it felt as if it would burst. The daycare was only 10 minutes away, yet the drive felt like an eternity. I imagined Linda waiting at the gate with that false smile, ready to snatch Ethan away from me. When I arrived, I saw Linda's silver SUV parked in front of the gate. There she stood, wearing a dark green jacket, clutching a sheaf of papers, talking with Tammy. A stranger in a cheap suit, likely her lawyer, stood at her side while a small crowd of parents began to gather, whispering and recording on their phones. "Emma Carter!" Tammy called as she saw me, her eyes filled with concern. Clutching Ethan, I approached steadily and said, voice trembling yet determined, "Linda, what are you doing? You have no right to be here." Linda turned with a cold smile that cut like a knife. "Emma, I have a permit," she said, holding up the papers. "The court gave me visitation rights with Ethan. You can't keep me away forever." The man beside her nodded and handed me a document. I glanced at it, a document resembling a court order, though the judge's signature was faint and unclear. "This is fake," I screamed, tossing the paper to the ground. "You forged my signature at daycare and now you're pulling this stunt?" Tammy stepped forward and positioned herself between us. "Mrs. Hayes, we've checked. There is no court order. Please leave immediately or I'll call the police." Linda's face fell for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure and addressed the gathering crowd. "See, everyone? My daughter-in-law is losing it. She won't let me see my grandson, even though I have legal rights." A few people nodded and filmed her, but I refused to let her control the narrative anymore. "Linda, you're lying," I shouted, causing Ethan to cry even harder. "You were seen outside my son's room at midnight, sending threatening dolls, falsely reporting me to CPS. You don't love Ethan. You just want to control him." The crowd fell silent, with some even lowering their phones. Linda opened her mouth to retort, but the man beside her hushed her with a whispered word. She fixed me with a glare full of hatred, then got into her car and drove off. Tammy embraced me, whispering, "Are you okay? We won't let her near Ethan again." I returned home, holding Ethan tightly as tears streamed down my face. Rachel arrived soon after, carrying cookies and offering a warm embrace. "Emma, Linda has lost it," she said. "But you did the right thing, facing her in front of everyone. She's completely out of control." I nodded, though my inner fear remained. That forged permit was a dangerous move, and I knew Linda wasn't done yet. Later that night, Jake came home, his face flushed with anger. "Emma, I can't believe your mother did this," he said, slamming his fist on the table. "I called her, but she wouldn't answer. I'm heading over to her house right now." I gripped his hand and whispered, "Jake, be careful. Your mother is not normal." He nodded, kissed me, and left. While waiting for Jake, I opened my laptop and reviewed the ring footage from that morning when Linda came to daycare. And then I saw it, a clip recorded at 3 a.m. from the previous night, just before Tammy's call. Linda, wearing the same coat as today, was seen standing at the front corner of our yard, putting an envelope into our mailbox. I hadn't checked the mailbox that morning. Rushing outside, I opened it and found yet another note. "Emma, you cannot win. Ethan belongs to me. Leave Jake or I will make you lose everything forever." I photographed the note and sent it immediately to Karen, then called Jake. "Mom has admitted the permit is fake," he said in a hoarse voice. "She hired a goofy lawyer to scare me." I shouted at her, telling her that if she didn't stop, I'd call the police. Then she started crying, saying she only wanted to keep Ethan safe because she lost Sarah. I couldn't stand it anymore, Emma. I told her to never contact us again. I held Jake tightly, feeling his pain. Linda wasn't just hurting me, she was tearing her own son apart. But I also knew the battle was not over. The next morning, Karen called to confirm that our request for a temporary restraining order had been approved for 3 days. "Emma, brace yourself," she said. "Linda may show up with her own lawyer. But with the evidence we have, she really doesn't stand a chance." I nodded, but inside, I remained uneasy. Linda had been beaten at daycare, yet she always had a new trick. And exactly as I feared, one day before our hearing, I received a text from an unknown number. "You think you're safe? Look outside your window." I checked the Ring app, and there, in the dim glow of a street lamp, a figure dressed in black stood in the corner of our yard holding something gleaming. I screamed. It was a knife partially visible under the light. I, Emma Carter, had lived in fear ever since Linda Hayes turned our small Sacramento home into a battlefield. From her unannounced visits, defamatory online videos, forging documents to pick up Ethan from daycare, false CPS reports, to sending threatening letters, I had endured it all to protect my son. The upcoming restraining order hearing was our final chance to put an end to this nightmare. After the knife incident, I didn't sleep a wink. I sat up all night clutching Ethan, double-checking every window and lock in our home. For the first time, even Jake failed to defend his mother. "Emma, I'm sorry," he whispered, his eyes red with tears. "I had no idea she'd gone this far. I'll testify at court and tell everything." I nodded, though a deep worry remained. Linda did not act alone. She was too clever to be caught red-handed. Who was the knife-wielding intruder, and what other tricks did she have? I sent the video of the shadowy figure along with every piece of evidence to Karen. Videos of Linda outside Ethan's window at midnight. The note calling Ethan her second chance. The forged daycare form, and even the TikTok from the supermarket. Karen called the next morning, her voice firm. "Emma, this evidence is very strong. The judge will see that Linda is a threat. But be aware, she has her own lawyer now, and she might play the victim. Stay calm, no matter what she says." The hearing was set at the Sacramento courthouse, a cold gray building with endless corridors. I entered wearing a crisp white shirt, striving to appear confident, though my hands trembled as I gripped Jake's. Ethan was safely in the care of Rachel, the one person I trusted to watch over him, as we stepped into the courtroom. There, I saw Linda seated at a table across from us, wearing a pale blue dress and a pearl necklace, appearing every bit the perfect grandmother. Her gaze, cold and piercing, made my skin crawl. The presiding judge, a middle-aged man with a deep, steady voice, opened the session. Karen presented my case. "Your Honor, for months, Mrs. Linda Hayes has harassed Ms. Emma Carter's family. She broke into their home, forged documents, sent threatening messages, and repeatedly appeared outside her grandson's room at midnight. This is not the behavior of a loving grandmother. It is an obsessive, dangerous fixation." Karen proceeded to present every piece of evidence, the videos, the notes, the forged forms. When the clip showing Linda outside Ethan's room at 2:47 a.m. was played, the courtroom fell into a stunned silence. I saw Linda lower her head, though I couldn't tell if she was ashamed or merely pretending. Then it was Linda's lawyer Diane's turn. a tall, slender woman with a gentle voice. Your Honor, my client is simply a devoted grandmother. Ms. Carter has grossly misinterpreted Mrs. Hayes' intentions, exaggerating every incident to isolate her from the family. Diane called Linda to the stand. Linda dabbed her eyes with tissue and began, All I ever wanted was to be close to Ethan. Emma Carter's always tense and jealous. I worry for my grandson's safety. I have never threatened her. Everything is made up. I squeezed Jake's hand so hard I almost cried out that she was lying. But Karen motioned me to remain quiet. Then Linda said something I hadn't expected. Your Honor, I lost my daughter, Sarah, years ago. In a fit of tears, she continued, Ethan is the light of my life, my chance to start over. Emma just doesn't understand that. She wants to steal Ethan from me, just as she stole Jake from me. The courtroom murmured, and I saw sympathetic looks from several people. Linda was turning her personal grief into a weapon, and she was very effective. Karen stood and, in a razor-sharp voice, asked, Mrs. Hayes, you say you love your grandson? So how do you explain standing outside his room at midnight? What about the note ordering Ms. Carter to leave Jake or lose everything? Linda opened her mouth but could only stammer, I was only worried about Ethan. Then Karen presented the video clip of the shadowy figure with the knife. And what about this? Do you recognize this person? Linda trembled and shook her head. No, it wasn't me. Judge Thompson banged his gavel, calling for silence, then turned his steely gaze to Linda. Mrs. Hayes, I've heard enough. Your actions are not those of a loving grandmother. They are obsessive, manipulative, and dangerous. I agree with Ms. Carter and hereby issue a permanent restraining order preventing you from contacting Ms. Carter, Mr. Carter, or your grandson in any form. He then addressed Diane. As for the forged documents and threatening behavior, I will refer the matter to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. Linda slumped in her chair, sobbing, and I felt no pity. She had dug her own grave. Jake held me tightly, tears streaming. Emma, I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have stopped her sooner. I could only squeeze his hand as I silently longed to go home, to hold Ethan, and to leave this nightmare behind. But the drama wasn't over. As we exited the courthouse, a reporter from Good Morning Valley, ironically the very show that once hosted Linda, blocked my way. Miss Carter, how do you feel about winning this case, White? She asked, microphone extended. I took a deep breath and looked straight into the camera. I haven't really won anything, I said firmly. All I wanted was to protect my son. Linda isn't the victim. She chose this path herself. That evening, the interview aired, and the public began to turn against Linda completely. Her old TikTok video was removed, and the comments shifted to condemning her. Later, Rachel called, laughing, Emma, she's finished. All of Sacramento is calling her evil grandma now. I managed a weak smile, though I didn't feel joy. Linda had lost everything, her son, her grandson, her reputation, for the sake of her obsession. A few days later, the police called. They had located Gary, and he admitted that Linda had paid him to send those threatening letters and to stand outside my house with a knife to teach Emma a lesson. Linda was arrested on charges of conspiracy to threaten, and a criminal trial was scheduled. Jake refused to visit his mother, saying he needed time to heal. I sat on the sofa with Ethan. The little boy giggled as I read him a story. Jake entered, embracing both of us. Emma, we'll start over, he said quietly. It will be just the three of us. I nodded, relieved yet forever scarred by the ordeal. Linda had left a mark, and I knew I would always be on guard. Yet I never forgot. I kept the photo of Sarah locked away as a reminder that family isn't property. It's built on respect. Linda had lost everything trying to control us, and I vowed that Ethan would never grow up in fear. One morning, as I pushed Ethan on his swing, he laughed joyfully and exclaimed, Mom, I love you! I hugged him, tears streaming silently. We had won, but the price had been steep. I, Emma Carter, once believed that our little Sacramento home, where Jake and I built a life for Ethan, would remain our sanctuary. But Linda Hayes, my mother-in-law, transformed it into a battlefield. From breaking into my home without permission, defaming me on TikTok, forging documents to pick up Ethan from daycare, falsely reporting me to CPS, to hiring Gary to threaten me with a knife, I fought tooth and nail to protect my son. The trial finally brought justice, a permanent restraining order and criminal charges against her. But just when I thought it was over, An unmarked envelope arrived in the mailbox. Inside was an old photo of Linda and Sarah, her lost daughter, with the words, "I will never forget," written on the back. Linda was in jail, so who sent it and why? I stood in the yard, the photo trembling in my hand, feeling as though Linda's ghost still clung to me. In the living room, Ethan played happily with his toys, completely unaware of the battle his mother had fought to keep him safe. Jake appeared at the door, his face ashen. "Emma, what's wrong?" he asked in concern. I showed him the photo and he stammered, "Sarah, Mom never showed me this before. Who sent it?" I immediately checked the ring footage, desperate to catch whoever had left the envelope. The video from 5 a.m. the previous day showed a cyclist gliding past, followed by a hooded figure who dropped the envelope in the mailbox before disappearing without a plate or recognizable features. A phantom. I sent the video and the photo to Karen. "Emma, this might be someone trying to stir things up," Karen said over the phone. "Linda is behind bars, and Gary is awaiting trial. I'll notify the police, but be careful." That afternoon, a young officer named Mike came to our home. He reviewed the video, took notes, and said, "There are no fingerprints on the envelope. It might be a curious onlooker or someone who believes Linda's story. We'll monitor it." I nodded, though my heart remained heavy. Social media buzzed even after the trial. A few still called Linda the scary grandma, and a couple of people sent me threats like, "You'll pay for tearing your family apart." Jake couldn't take it anymore. "Emma, I have to find out who's behind this," he said one evening, sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands. "If someone is doing this because of your mother, I need to know." He called Diane, Linda's former lawyer who had left the case after the conviction, and though reluctant, she agreed to meet. The next morning, Jake drove to her office in downtown Sacramento, leaving me at home with Ethan and Rachel. Rachel arrived with Panera sandwiches and coffee, trying to cheer me up. "Emma, you've won," she said, smoothing Ethan's hair. "Linda can't touch you anymore. Maybe the envelope was just a prank." I wanted to believe her, but the eerie photo of Sarah, with eyes that unnervingly resembled Ethan's, lingered in my thoughts. I opened my laptop and searched for more information about Linda and Sarah. I came across an old Sacramento Bee article from 1990 titled "Car Accident Claims Life of 6-Year-Old Girl." It recounted how Linda, while driving in the rain, lost control, and her daughter Sarah died. The article noted that Linda was never charged, but neighbors whispered that she had blamed herself for the rest of her life. When Jake returned, he looked as though he had seen a ghost. "Emma, Diane said that Mom had a very close friend, Carol. Someone who always supported her," he said. "Carol believes Mom is innocent and thinks you're the one destroying the family. Diane isn't sure, but apparently Mom may have involved Carol in something before she was arrested." Carol. The name rang a bell. She had once commented on one of Linda's TikTok videos, calling me a bad daughter-in-law. I checked Carol's Facebook, where she had posted just yesterday, "Justice isn't always fair. A good grandmother is suffering." There was no concrete evidence, but my instincts told me Carol might be the one who sent that photo. I immediately called Karen and recounted everything. "Emma, if Carol's acting on Linda's behalf, we might need to expand our investigation," she said. "I'll inform the district attorney. Do you want to confront Carol?" I shook my head over the phone. I didn't want any more drama, I just wanted peace. Karen agreed to keep an eye on Carol, and the police promised to increase patrols around my home. A few days later, Karen called back excitedly. "Emma, we found an email exchange between Linda and Carol from before the hearing. In it, Linda tells Carol to send a gift as a reminder about Ethan. They never mentioned the photo explicitly, but it's enough to tie them together. Carol was even subpoenaed and admitted that Linda promised to pay her to keep the story alive." I sighed with relief, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from my chest. Carol wasn't dangerous. She was merely a loyal friend manipulated by Linda. Linda, however, now faced a new charge: inciting harassment even while in jail. The news spread quickly, and the Sacramento Bee ran an article titled "Obsessive Grandma." The story continues after the verdict. The public turned completely against Linda, and the threatening messages to me abruptly ceased. Rachel called, laughing, "Emma, you're a superhero. The whole city is with you now." Jake and I eventually decided to leave Sacramento behind. We found a new home in Oregon, a place of lush green forests and pure, fresh air, promising a new beginning. We sold our house, changed our phone numbers, and locked down our social media. Ethan, now 3 years old, delighted in running around his new yard without any memory of Linda's haunted presence. Jake began therapy to heal the wounds his mother had inflicted. "Emma, I won't let anyone hurt you ever again," he vowed one evening as we sat together by the fireplace. I smiled. At last, I felt safe. But I never forgot. I kept Sarah's photo in a locked box as a reminder that family is not a possession, but a bond of respect. Linda had lost everything trying to control us, and I vowed that Ethan would never grow up in fear. One morning, as I pushed Ethan on his swing, he joyfully shouted, "Mom, I love you." I held him close, silent tears falling. We had won, but the cost had been enormous. I, Emma Carter, once believed that our small Sacramento home, where Jake and I built our life for Ethan, would be a sanctuary. But Linda Hayes turned it into a battlefield. From her unauthorized intrusions, defamatory TikToks, forged documents, false CPS reports, to hiring Gary to threaten me with a knife. I fought with every ounce of strength to protect my son. The trial brought justice, a permanent restraining order, and criminal charges against her. But just when I thought it was over, an unmarked envelope arrived in our mailbox. Inside was an old photo of Linda with Sarah, her lost daughter, with the words, "I will never forget," printed on the back. Linda was in jail, so who sent this and why? I stood in the yard, the photo trembling in my hand, feeling as though Linda's specter still haunted me. Inside, Ethan played happily with his toys, unaware of the battle waged for his safety. Jake appeared at the door, his face etched with worry. "Emma, what's wrong?" he asked softly. I showed him the photo and he whispered, "Sarah, Mom never showed me this before." "Who sent it?" I immediately reviewed the ring footage, hoping to catch whoever had delivered the envelope. A clip from 5:01 a.m. the previous day showed a bicycle gliding past and then a hooded figure dropping an envelope in our mailbox before disappearing without a license plate or visible features, only a shadow. I forwarded the video and photo to Karen. "Emma, this might be someone trying to stir trouble," she said over the phone. "Linda is still in jail, and Gary is awaiting trial. I'll report this to the police, but please be cautious." That afternoon, a young officer named Mike came by. He examined the video, made some notes, and said, "There are no fingerprints on the envelope. It could be someone curious or someone who believes Linda's narrative. We will continue to monitor the situation." I nodded, though inside I was still uneasy. Social media buzzed even after the trial. A few still called Linda the monstrous grandma, while others even threatened me with, "You'll pay for tearing your family apart." Jake couldn't take it anymore. "Emma, I have to get to the bottom of this," he said that night, sitting on the sofa with his head in his hands. "If anyone's doing this because of my mother, I need to know." He called Diane, Linda's former attorney who had walked away from her case after the conviction. Reluctantly, Diane agreed to meet. The next morning, Jake drove to her downtown Sacramento office, while I stayed at home with Ethan and Rachel. Rachel arrived bearing Panera sandwiches and coffee, trying to lift my spirits. "Emma, you've won," she said as she gently combed Ethan's hair. "Linda can't touch you anymore. Maybe that envelope was just a prank." I wanted to believe her, but the eerie photo of Sarah, with eyes uncannily like Ethan's, haunted me still. I searched further online for information on Linda and Sarah, desperate to understand why Linda was so fixated on Ethan. I uncovered an old Sacramento Bee article from 1990, "Car Accident Claims Life of 6-Year-Old Girl." It recounted how Linda, while driving in the rain, lost control, and her daughter Sarah perished. Although Linda was never charged, neighbors whispered that she had blamed herself for the rest of her life. When Jake returned, he looked as if he'd seen a ghost. "Emma, Diane mentioned that Mom had a close friend named Carol, someone who always supported her. Carol believes Mom is innocent and accuses you of tearing the family apart. Diane isn't certain, but apparently Mom might have had Carol do something before she was arrested." Carol, the name rang a bell. I remembered her once commenting on one of Linda's TikTok videos, calling me a horrible daughter-in-law. Hey, I checked Carol's Facebook and saw a post from yesterday. "Justice isn't always fair. A good grandmother is suffering." There was no concrete evidence, but my instincts told me that Carol might have sent that photo. I immediately called Karen and explained everything. "Emma, if Carol is acting under Linda's instructions, we could expand our investigation," she said. "I'll file a report with the district attorney. Do you want to confront Carol?" I shook my head over the phone. I didn't need any more drama. I just wanted peace. Karen agreed to monitor Carol, and the police promised to increase patrols around my home. A few days later, Karen called back, her voice energized. Emma, we found an email exchange between Linda and Carol from before the hearing. In it, Linda tells Carol to send a gift as a reminder about Ethan. They never mention the photo explicitly, but it's enough to link them. Carol was even subpoenaed, and she admitted that Linda had promised to pay her to keep the story alive. I exhaled a sigh of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted. Carol wasn't dangerous. She was just a loyal friend manipulated by Linda. Linda now faced a new charge, inciting harassment from behind bars. The news spread quickly, and the Sacramento Bee ran an article titled, "Obsessive Grandma. The story continues after the verdict." The public turned completely against Linda, and the threatening messages sent to me gradually stopped. Rachel later called, laughing exuberantly, "Emma, you're a superhero. The entire city is on your side now." Eventually, Jake and I decided to leave Sacramento. We found a new home in Oregon, a place where lush green forests and fresh, clean air promised a new beginning. We sold our house, changed our phone numbers, and locked down our social media. Ethan, now 3 years old, loved running and playing in the new yard, free from Linda's haunting shadow. Jake found work at a local construction company and started therapy to mend the wounds inflicted by his mother. "Emma, I promise, I won't let anyone hurt you again," he said one evening as we sat by the fireplace. I smiled, finally feeling safe, but I never forgot. I kept the photo of Sarah locked away in a secure box, as a reminder that family isn't about ownership, but about respect. Linda lost everything in her bid to control us, and I vowed that Ethan would never grow up in fear. One morning, as I pushed Ethan on his swing, he laughed and shouted, "Mom, look, a rainbow!" I smiled as I hugged him tight. Linda was now just a part of our past, a harsh lesson on boundaries. Family's not about possession, it's about love, respect, and moments like these. I knew I would always remain vigilant, but now I lived for Ethan, for Jake, and for myself. I looked back inside my new home and saw Jake standing at the door, smiling. "Ready for dinner, superhero?" he asked Ethan. The little boy nodded and ran into his father's arms. Standing there watching my family, I felt free for the first time in ages. Linda had tried to take everything from us, but she only made us stronger, and that I know is the real victory.